Several years ago, two friends of mine and I were talking about staying at an Airbnb on a beach for the weekend, just to get away for a little while. At the time, we were all between 28 and 32 years old. We found a place with a great price along the west coast of Florida that was right on the beach that was hard to beat. It had a 3.5-star rating, and some of the reviews were saying that the owner was a little creepy. But most of the ratings said that they had a great time with no issues. So we talked about it and figured that we probably wouldn't ever see the guy, since we were going to be spending most of our time on the beach. After booking it and confirming the dates, we were all very excited about it. When the time finally came, my friend Sarah picked me up first, since I was the closest. Once we picked up Mia, we started driving the 3 hours to the Airbnb. Needless to say, we were all on a high from the excitement of going to the beach and relaxing for the weekend. Once we got there, we were in awe, not only on how beautiful the house looked, but also the scenery. The house was right on the beach and had a wraparound porch with a table and several chairs on the side that looked out onto the ocean. We entered the 4-digit code that was given to us on the email onto the keypad to unlock the front door and walked inside. The inside was just as beautiful as it was outside and had nice big windows that looked out onto the ocean. After we grabbed a room and settled in, it was close to lunchtime, since we had left very early that morning, so we were able to spend time on the beach that day. We decided that before going to the beach, we better grab some lunch. There were some local restaurants that were in walking distance from the home and decided on one of them. Once we were done and got back to the Airbnb, we noticed a couple of the items had been moved slightly. We didn't think too much about it, since we were so excited when we got there. We could have just been remembering wrong. After changing into our bathing suits and grabbing some beach towels, drinks, we headed down to the beach. Before we knew it, it was after 5 p.m., and we gathered our stuff and headed back to the house. Right before arriving to the house earlier, we had stopped by the store to pick up some food to make for dinner that night. We made grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup since it was simple to make. With it being such a beautiful night out, we decided that we would eat our dinner out on the porch overlooking the ocean. As we were out there, we noticed there were still people on the beach, but not as many as there was earlier that day. Sarah spoke up, saying that she thought she saw someone watching us from behind one of the umbrellas. Mia and I looked in the direction Sarah mentioned, but we didn't see anyone. I spoke up, saying that they were probably just looking at something else that was in this general direction, but not looking at us exactly. Sarah looked towards the umbrella one last time and shrugged, saying maybe I was right. As time passed, it was getting chilly outside, and we decided to make our way back inside since it was also starting to get dark as well. It was only 7:30 at this point, and we decided to put on a movie. Partway through the movie, Mia suddenly paused it and as she looked towards the back of the house. Sarah and I asked her why she did that, and she quickly shushed us. She whispered that she thought she heard something from outside. We looked in the direction and started listening, but we heard nothing. Sarah mentioned it was probably just a squirrel or something. Since we didn't hear anything, we went back to watching the movie when Moments later, we suddenly heard a crash coming from outside, which made us all jump. We looked in the direction of the crash from outside. That's when we saw a man's face duck away from the window. Sarah let out a scream and then looked at us, telling us that was the same guy that she saw earlier while we were eating dinner. Mia asked if she was sure, since she was only gotten a glimpse of the guy both times. Sarah swore he was the same guy. We didn't know what to do exactly, and Mia suggested we call the cops or something, though we knew that the guy would probably be long gone by the time they got there. After a few moments of talking, we decided to call just to have them check the area at least. As we expected, they couldn't find anyone outside looking around, but they told us that they would patrol the area for that night. It did make us feel a little better, but we were far from feeling what we felt when we first arrived. After they left, we decided to check all the windows and doors to make sure they were shut and locked tightly before heading to bed for the night. The next morning, we all sat outside on the porch with some coffee, talking about what we should do next. Even though we did have a scare the night before, we decided that we would end up staying the night since the guy never came back. We decided that we would head down to the beach to enjoy the morning lying on the sand, soaking up some of the sun. Several hours later, I told Mia and Sarah I was going to head back to the house to use the bathroom and to get some more water, asking them if they need anything. They both asked for some more water as well, so I nodded and turned to head back to the house when I stopped in my tracks, nearly screaming. I quickly got the girls' attention to look toward the bedroom upstairs that overlooked the beach, that happened to be the room I was staying in. There, in the window, we could see a figure moving around. Sarah didn't hesitate, grabbing her phone and calling 911. All three of us stayed where we were on the beach, trying to act like we weren't looking up at the house, just in case whoever was inside looked down towards us. Within 5 minutes of calling the cops, they arrived, and we ran up to meet them as they got out of the car, explaining that we were the ones who called and pointed to the house. We explained that the house didn't belong to us, but we were just renting it for the weekend. 2 cops headed towards the house, while one of them stayed with us to get more information. We gave them all the information we had about the Airbnb, including the guy's phone number. A little while later, the 2 cops brought out a guy in handcuffs, and Sarah gasped, saying that that's him. Mia and I knew right away who she was talking about, but the cop who was standing with us asked who. Sarah quickly explained the events that had happened the evening before. The cop decided that he better call the owner and let him know. As the phone started ringing, we instantly heard a ringtone coming from the guy in handcuffs. All of us stared at him as one of the cops pulled the phone out of his pocket and looked at the number, then up at us. He walked over and showed the phone to the police officer next to us. The guy that they had just arrested was the owner of the house. The arresting cop looked towards us, explaining that he found him hiding in a closet with a knife, rope, and duct tape. Apparently, he had planned on having his way with us before killing us, though he never gave a reason why he chose to do that to us. When I saw him in my room, he was going through my stuff, looking for anything he can take with him. Who knows what would have happened if I hadn't gotten up to go get the drinks and use the bathroom at that moment. Of course, we contacted AirBnB and they apologized, but nothing came of it other than them taking the guy off their site and banning him from ever coming back. The cops stayed with us while we gathered up our stuff and told us that there was a nice hotel just down the road that we could stay in. Since it was already mid-afternoon by this point, and we were still in shock, we decided to stay in the hotel and drive home in the morning. After that, none of us went back to staying in another Airbnb and only stayed in hotels ever since.